I sat on the closed lid of the motel toilet with the light on and the recorder running. My sleeve stuck to my skin where the blood dried. I kept saying it into the little red dot like it mattered. I was right. It followed facts. It followed what I found. It didn't follow me. If it was behind the door, that was because the door was between me and the story. I said that out loud so whoever heard this later would get it. The bathroom fan ticked. The light buzzed. A cold draft slid over my bare toes, and I got mad at it like that would help. I propped my phone on a folded towel facing the mirror. I kept my eyes on the gap under the bathroom door. I kept talking. You want the beginning? Fine. This started as a nothing assignment. It was a string of lost archives. Stupid little things. A few criminal dockets disappeared from a box. An obit clipping missing from the binder. Somebody wrote in the tip line that old stories were vanishing from the site too. It was a small paper. We were 5 people in the newsroom on a good day. I pitched that we run a quick, "Where did your granddad's photo go?" piece. Lou, my editor, nodded and said, "Go, but don't waste time. Get it on the site by Thursday. No ghost stuff," he said. He smirked when he said ghost stuff. He knew I hated that crap. I went down to the morgue room that first day. It was a windowless closet with metal shelves, microfilm boxes, old binders with tape peeling. My pen left a smear on my notepad where my hand dragged over it. I wiped it and made it worse. I wrote down the box numbers anyway. I counted. Box 19 was there, 20 was there, 21 was gone, 22 was there. The air was colder back there. It always was. The bulb flickered a little. It wasn't a big deal. I took a few photos with my phone to remember the labels. When I reviewed them, each shot had a glare in the corner where the glass from the frame caught the light. In one, the glare wasn't glare. It looked like a hood over a face that wasn't there. It was the size of a head, right where a face should be. Just a blank, like someone cut out the face with scissors and you could see the back wall through it. I told myself it was glare. I said it out loud. Glare. That night I stayed late finishing copy. Around 10, I went out the back door by the dumpsters to smoke, even though I don't smoke. Habit. Air. There was a soft sound like someone moving laundry. A rustle, not loud. I felt a cold draft on my hands. I looked at the glass in the back door as I pushed it open. The wire mesh in the pane made it look like a cheap mirror. In it, a shape stood behind my shoulder. A hood, like a rain cloak. Black, cheap fabric. It didn't look shiny. It didn't look special. It was just there. I turned fast. The alley was empty. Sound stopped. Footsteps a second ago. Maybe, but if they were there, they stopped when I turned. I stood there like an idiot with my chest out. "Hey," I said. Nothing. When I looked back at the glass, the hood was gone. I told myself it was a shadow. I went home, wrote my piece, and filed it. I told people the next day. Just pretended to laugh. Manny said, "Don't put that in the story." I didn't. I emailed Lou. He wrote back, "If you have names for the boxes missing, that's the lead A." He did not come over to look. People always think bosses come look. They don't. I started calling around. City clerk. Library records. Old-timers who liked to be quoted. Ruth at the library let me in the back to check their microfilm. She had a ring with keys that clinked. "Stuff goes missing," she said. "Kids." You'd be surprised. I set my recorder on the table. The green light blinked. She pointed at the line of film reels. The power flickered. The green light stuttered and went out and back on. The recorder beeped. Ruth said, "They need to call an electrician." The room had a draft around our ankles. "The basement is like this," she said. I threaded film into the reader to see if the problem was the paper or the city. On the film, whole sections were blank. Not black. Blank. White. Like it never got exposed. "Could be damage," Ruth said. "Somebody stored them wrong." She coughed and left to help someone at the desk. I leaned over to take a photo of the white blocks. In the glass of the reader, in the reflection that is the face of whoever's looking, there it was. A hood where my face should be. Not me. A hood, and under the hood there was nothing. I took the photo. The picture had the hood clear as day. I turned in my chair with my heart loud. The stacks were quiet. "Footsteps, maybe." I said, "Who's there?" The footsteps stopped when I said it. I stood up. I found nothing in the aisle. When I sat back down, there was a black thread on my seat. Like from a coat. I pinched it. It stuck to my fingers. I wiped it on my jeans and it stuck to that too. I put it in my bag so I could show Manny later and say, "See?" He'd call me a fool, but I liked the fight. By Wednesday it got worse. Ruth called and said, "I can't help you anymore." She sounded scared of her own voice. The court clerk stopped returning messages. The guy in records sent a one-line email. No comment. Lou stopped answering his phone. He does that sometimes when he wants deniability. Jess sent a text. "Drop it, man." The power flickered in the newsroom. The lights went out and came back. The gut of the building felt like it took a breath. I kept writing anyway. My notes were a mess because the ink smeared every time the lights went off and I dragged my hand. I went out to get a coffee and came back to a black thread on my keyboard. It lay there in a straight line. I picked it up with a piece of tape and held it up. "Funny," I said. Manny held up his hands. "Not me," he said. He packed his bag and left early. I tried to leave town right after that. Don't roll your eyes. It wasn't some coward move. It was strategy. If somebody wanted to spook me off a story, I would change base until I had more. I went to my car. All 4 tires looked fine. I started the engine and put it in reverse. The car lurched, and I heard a long shh like air getting out fast. The dash lit. I stopped. I got out. The 2 tires on the street side had slices. Not big ones. Just long enough to empty slow. There was a piece of black thread stuck under the valve cap on one. I flicked it, and it floated off. The air was cold down around my ankles like the library. I didn't say anything. I didn't want to give whoever was listening the win. I called for a tow and got put on hold. I slammed the door. I heard footsteps behind me. I turned fast. They stopped. I knew that move by now. I stood a minute and listened. The wind hit my ears and then not. Then did. It felt like fabric moving near my face. That rustle. If you don't know that sound, good for you. Once you know it, you can't unhear it. It's like the sound when someone lifts a curtain. Microsound. It was close. I got in the car and locked it. The power on the dash flickered. The radio did a short static and died and then came back. My recorder in the passenger seat turned itself on. It beeped and then stuttered like it caught in a loop. I smacked it. It kept recording. I slept at the Ramona Motel that night because it was close and the day desk didn't ask for a deposit. The clerk slid me a key card. "Locks are new," he said. "They stick sometimes." He laughed when he said it. My room smelled like old bleach. I checked the door latch twice. The chain had scratches. Fresh ones. The metal around the latch was bent. I took photos. I set a chair under the knob. I put the other chair in front of the bathroom door. I kept my bag close so no one could mess with it. I had this thought that if I kept the thread in the bag, it couldn't leave any more of it on me. That's stupid. I know. Let me say it anyway. I checked my press badge. I had lost my old one at the library on Monday. I had a temp printed on Tuesday with a little sticker that said temp. It made me feel like a visitor at my own job. I rubbed the edge of it until the ink smeared. I went out the next morning to see the tires. The tow guy finally showed. He said, "Somebody doesn't like you." He laughed like he always laughed at everything. He jacked the car and slung it on the truck. I stood there with coffee and watched the front glass of the newsroom across the street. In the reflection of that big window, I saw the cloak shape in the entry. It was angled toward the door like it waited. I turned and there was no one in the entry. The glass held it, though. It stood there in the window where a face should be if I were there, but it was a hood. No features. Just absence. I took a photo through my phone. The lens showed it sharper than my eyes. The more I looked through lenses, the clearer it was. When I looked straight on, it was like my mind made it blur. The recorder on in my pocket clicked and then garbled for a second. It did it every time it was near. I didn't notice that until later. I do now. I didn't stop working. You can think what you want about that. You're not the one who gets blamed when traffic is down. I met with Daryl, ex-cop who liked to dump on the department. He told me, archives go missing because someone didn't scan them. Big deal. He said it 3 times like my ears were thick. I pushed him. Names went missing, I said. Whole case's worth. He looked over my shoulder while I talked. He wasn't listening to me. He was watching the window. You okay? I said. He stood. We're done, he said. He went out and left me with the check. He had black thread on the sleeve of his jacket. I almost said something. I didn't. I played my recordings that night. I sat on the motel bed and scrolled. Each interview had the same extra seconds. In the parts where the source got nervous or said no, the audio stuttered. It wasn't the kind of glitch when your mic rubs fabric. This was like syllables got doubled and stretched. Rustle sounds were clear. When it was there, the footsteps on the track stopped. In those beats, if there was a window or a framed print, the phone's camera picked up a little dark wedge where the top of a hood would be. And it got closer. On Monday, it was small, near the door and the back of the frame. On Wednesday, it filled the glass behind me. By Thursday, it was close enough in the mirror over the sink to take the whole middle. I saw that when I scrubbed through. I swiped back and forth. It felt like a joke, but not a funny one. I threw the phone and had to go get it from under the chair. I went back to the office at night. Don't tell me that was dumb. I had to look at the server logs. If the stories were missing, there'd be a record. Lou didn't answer calls. Fine. I had my card. The door opened. The newsroom was dark and blue from the emergency exit light. I walked past my desk. My notes were still there. A smear had spread across the top page that wasn't there before. Ink. The word lost was just a dark drag now. I kept moving. The air had a cold band at knee level that moved with me. The server room had a window into the hall, the kind with a wire mesh like the back door. In the glass was a hood shape in the angle between where I stood and Lou's office. It stood and watched the server room. I told myself not to look at it. I pushed the door open. The power flickered. The machines beeped. I typed fast. The logs showed deletions. Off the site. Off the archive. Timestamps. User. The user was my login. Time of day. 2:13 a.m. 4:31 a.m. 3:08 a.m. Random times. Middle of the night. Nights I slept. I scrolled. It was my card in the door too. The system logged the backdoor entry. Always me. I said, no. I said it right there. No. The The steps in the hall did a slow run and stopped when I turned my head. I looked at the glass. The hood was right up against the pane. The wire pattern cut across where a face would be. My name tag on the server rack reflected faint in the glass and looked like it hung inside the hood. I closed my eyes. The fans whined. I grabbed a printout. The last deleted item was mine. A profile I wrote last year on a guy whose probation went sideways. It was my byline. I grabbed more. The list was spotted with my name like rot. I didn't make them disappear. I swear. I didn't. I wrote hard stories. I pushed. I told the recorder that. It was in my pocket. I said, "It's a hack. Someone cloned my card." There was a thread caught under the server room door. I didn't pick it up. I kicked it, and it stuck to my shoe anyway. I drove to Lou's apartment after that. It was 2 floors up over a deli. I banged until a neighbor poked his head out and told me to shut up. No answer. My phone battery dipped to red. I went back to the motel. I checked the door latch again. The chain was looser. The screws were shiny like they had turned that day. I slid the chair back under the knob. I put my bag in the bathroom. I think I thought the tile would make it obvious if something moved. I was tired enough, I was stupid. I set the phone on the sink on a folded towel so it wouldn't vibrate away. I opened the camera and set it to record. I looked in the mirror. I saw myself first. Dark circles. Bloodshot. The temp badge on my shirt hung crooked. I lifted it and the clip squeaked. There was a cold draft on my wrist, like a touch. Behind me, in the reflected room, the curtains moved. I didn't hear a sound. They just shifted like someone brushed them. Then there was that rustle, the same as the alley, as the stacks. Fabric moving on fabric. I didn't turn. I watched the mirror. The phone recorded. The audio on the screen made little jumps in the wave. The bathroom lights flickered once. The rustle got louder and then quiet like it was right behind the phone. I said, "Don't." I don't know who I meant. The hood loomed up in the mirror, filling the place where the doorway should show. The top of it was matte. Cheap cloth. No pattern. No trim. It stopped. The place where a face should be was black. Not shadow black. Empty. Like the mirror was a hole. The audio made a long stutter sound. The hood lifted a bit, like someone pulled it back to scratch their head. Under it was not a head. It was a cavity. Dark. Lined all around the inside with strips of paper. Clippings. My bylines. Little cuts with my name on them. Some had the ink smeared from my hand like on my notes. I could see the edges. I had torn myself in the morgue. There were pieces of my handwriting too. My S's. My dots. They were stitched into the lining with black thread. In the middle, hung on a little loop of thread, was my press badge. Not the temp. The old one. The nice one with the better photo. It dangled and spun slow from the draft. It slid and ticked against the glass once. Tap. I said, "Nope." I grabbed the phone and the chair at the same time. The chair bent my nail back. I didn't feel it until later. I shoved the chair in the bathroom, shut the door, and locked it. I sat down on the toilet lid. That's where I started this. The recorder was on the towel. I put the phone on the towel up against the mirror again. The little red dot blinked in rhythm from the power saving. I wiped my sleeve where the blood from my nail had smeared. It made it worse. I told the recorder I was right. I said it out loud. It followed the story. It followed the facts. I said, I did not delete anything. Someone used my card. They always do that. They borrow my card because I get things done. I said, it used me. My voice got too loud and the audio clipped. The light flickered and came back. Every time the power hiccuped, the draft pushed a little colder under the door. I kept thinking of the log, my login. I thought of the hood with the strips of my bylines. You want a twist? Here. When I pulled the printouts from the server room, there was one older than all the rest. It wasn't a web delete. It was a different system, an internal kill. The note beside it was a name. Mine. It was a personnel note. Revoke credentials. The date was the same day last year that we had the newsroom flood and we lost a cabinet. I wrote about the flood. I called it bad luck. I left out that I propped the back door for air and forgot to close it. The system auto-timed me. That was the first thing that went missing. Me. My keycard was disabled for 2 days and then turned back on because I made noise. I told everyone it was IT's fault. It wasn't. The tick on the paper, my name, the date. I had to sit down when I saw it. I had been playing at being the detective, and the first entry in the list of lost was me. I know how that sounds. Don't you say a word. This thing, it didn't follow me because I'm special. It built itself out of the things I broke. It lined itself with all the pieces that came off me when I kept pushing. If you think that means I deserved it, go to hell. People lose things. It doesn't mean a hood with no face gets to stand in your mirror. The footsteps started outside the bathroom. Soft. I could hear the heel-toe on the old carpet. They came to the door and stopped when I put my eye to the crack. I pulled back. I held my breath and listened. There was that fabric shift, like a person turning so the coat doesn't snag. I could taste the dust in the air. The power hiccuped twice fast and then steadied. The fan whined and steadied too. The recorder made the little digital hiccups it made when the thing was near. It picked up my breath. It picked up the tiny tap the bottle of Motel shampoo made when the draft knocked it into the little bar of soap. Lou, I said. I don't know why I said his name. Maybe I wanted someone to break in and tell me to write faster. Maybe I wanted someone else to own this. He didn't answer. No one answered. The draft got colder and then wasn't. The light dulled and then was normal. I stood because sitting made me feel like a kid. My knees popped. I zigzagged the phone angle so it caught more of the door. I stared. I kept talking. You can hear it when you play this back. I told the recorder, again, that the hood wasn't after me. It followed the facts. It followed the trail. I pointed at the paper on the counter so the camera would see. I held up the server printout. The ink on my fingers left a little black crescent on the corner. I said, "Someone will fix this. Someone will see this." The bathroom door opened an inch. The chain on the outer door didn't mean anything. The chair didn't mean anything. The bathroom door had a lock you can push with a dime. It slid. I didn't see a hand. The door opened an inch more. I took one step back and hit the tub. I said, "No." The rustle was right in front of me. The hooded edge of cloth came into the frame and stopped. The mirror showed it better than my eyes did. It always did. It filled the glass. The place where a face should be was nothing. The inside of the hood showed again in pieces. Strips of paper. The glue edges were not neat. Some pieces overlapped where the dates showed. I saw my name on a shard from a story about a food pantry. I saw my name on a piece from a shooting. I saw the tail of the S I always do too long. Black thread looped across the inside like a spider had tried to sew a bag and gave up. The press badge hung from a thread like a swing and tapped, soft, against the lens. Tap. "Listen to me," I said. I held my hands up. Not like surrender, like I was making a point in a meeting. It made me feel like me. "I did my job," I said. "I did it right. If anything is missing, it's because the world doesn't keep records. That's not on me." I said, "I'm not sorry. I probably should have lied. I didn't. The audio stuttered when I said not. The edge of the cloth moved, and the cold air hit my face. The tap of the badge on the lens lined up with my heartbeat. The power flickered once. The mirror showed the cloth closing like someone closing a curtain. The audio glitched like it did every time. You can see it when you scrub. The hood filled the frame, and in the instant before it covered the lens, the badge swung and knocked it again. Soft. Tap. Then the cloth touched the glass and all I saw was black. The recorder kept going. It picked up the rustle and the steps and then nothing and then a small sound. The last thing. My press badge sliding on the sink and tapping the phone as the cloak closed me in. Tap. I hope you liked this one, and if you did, prove it. Hit that like button, subscribe, and make sure you come back for more. It takes a second, and it really keeps this channel breathing. There's another story waiting. You should probably watch it before the lights flicker again. See you in the next one.